Mary sat at her small kitchen table in Sacramento as the morning sun slipped through the blinds. Her coffee had already gone cold, but she barely noticed because her eyes were fixed on her laptop screen. She was 60 years old, but her spirit felt sharper than ever as she whispered, "I can learn this. I know I can." For weeks she had been studying investment videos, reading financial blogs, and trying to understand trading platforms. Most people her age were slowing down, but Mary felt something inside her waking up. She had spent her whole life surviving, now she wanted to win. Mary remembered the day her ex-husband Tom walked out 12 years earlier, leaving her with an 8-year-old boy and a pile of overdue bills. People whispered that she would crumble, but she had only lifted her chin. She worked night shifts, early mornings, and weekend jobs just to give Evan a chance at a better life. He grew up seeing her hustle, hearing her say, "We don't quit in this house, baby." Evan worked hard too, earning scholarships and studying engineering at a good university. Mary never let him see how tired she was, only how determined. Now Evan was 20 years old, smart, gentle, and newly married to Kate, a girl from a wealthy tech family. Kate had bright blonde hair, expensive clothes, and a smile that hid sharp judgment. The first time Evan brought her home, Kate walked into Mary's small apartment and whispered, "How quaint." Mary only smiled back and said, "Sweetheart, it's not fancy, but it's paid for." Evan tried to blend both families, but Kate's parents, Richard and Linda, looked at Mary like she didn't belong in their world. Mary pretended not to notice, but she felt every cut. What no one knew was that Mary had already started something bold. She had taken $10,000 from her savings and opened an investment account. The first week terrified her, but she kept whispering, "Keep learning, Mary, keep going." She started by buying simple stocks she understood, grocery chains and utility companies. But she also took a chance on one small tech stock that her research suggested was undervalued. 2 weeks later, her account doubled. Mary stared at the numbers and breathed, "Is this real?" It was the first time life rewarded her instantly. 3 months later, Mary had turned that $10,000 into something far bigger. She still drove her old Honda, still shopped at the discount grocery store, and still lived in her modest apartment. Nobody suspected a thing, especially not Kate or her wealthy parents. But Thanksgiving dinner changed everything the moment Richard asked casually, "So Mary, Evan tells us you're taking little online money classes." Kate laughed softly and added, "Isn't investing too complicated for beginners?" Mary smiled back politely, but inside her heart whispered, "You have no idea who you're talking to." Dinner grew tense when Mary calmly explained, "I've been studying investment strategies and trying out a small account." Linda set down her fork and stared as if Mary had spoken a foreign language. "Investment strategies? At your age?" she asked sharply, making Kate smirk. Evan's face tightened with embarrassment, but Mary only smiled. "Yes, at my age. Learning never stops." Richard chuckled softly and said, "Well, don't go losing whatever small savings you have." Mary raised her glass and replied, "I'll try my best." Kate leaned forward with a sweet but cutting smile. "Mary, maybe stick to simple things like savings accounts. These markets are too complex for beginners." Evan snapped, "Kate, that's enough." But she continued, "I'm only saying it because I care." Mary met her eyes and said gently, "I appreciate your concern, dear." Inside, however, she felt something sharpen, a quiet certainty that this girl underestimated the wrong woman. 3 hours earlier, Mary had gotten a phone alert about a tech company. Kate's company. And Mary had already started watching it closely. After Thanksgiving, Mary returned to her apartment and sat at her desk, smiling at her growing portfolio. "Let them laugh," she whispered. "They have no idea." Her investments kept climbing. The tech stock soared. Her crypto doubled. Even her pharmaceutical shares jumped after a major announcement. Her account number looked unreal, but every dollar came from her own research and courage. What fascinated her most, however, was the company where Kate worked, BrightPoint Systems. The reports showed a major marketing problem. And Kate, the newly hired marketing director, was at the center of it. One Monday morning, Mary received a call from a business broker named Mark Turner. "Ms. Parker," he said politely, "are you still interested in acquiring a company in the tech service sector?" Mary straightened. "Yes, I am." "Which one?" Mark replied, "A company called BrightPoint Systems." Mary almost laughed. Really? Why are they selling? Mark explained, poor leadership in the marketing department and rising costs. The owner wants to retire before the company weakens further. Mary glanced at her computer and whispered, interesting. Very interesting. By Wednesday, Mary had reviewed every document. Brightpoint was solid, but the marketing failures were severe. And all the reports pointed to Kate's mismanagement. Mary made an offer 5% below asking price, but promised a fast closing within 10 days. The acceptance came hours later. Congratulations, Mark told her. You're about to own a software company. Mary thanked him and closed her laptop slowly. She whispered to herself, Kate laughed at my dreams. Then she smiled and added, let's see how she reacts when she meets her new boss. On December 11th at 9 a.m., Mary stepped into the bright lobby of Brightpoint Systems wearing a navy blue suit that fit her new confidence. The receptionist smiled politely and said, Good morning, Ms. Parker. The management team is waiting for you. Mary nodded and followed her to the conference room. When she walked in, she saw 6 nervous faces, and one familiar one. Kate sat at the far end of the table wearing a designer blouse and a smile full of certainty. She had no idea what was about to happen today. Mary took the seat at the head of the table. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, she said softly. The managers introduced themselves one by one, giving short reports. Operations was stable. Finance was strong. Customer service was improving. Technical development was excited about new products. Then Mary looked at Kate. Marketing? She asked. Kate stood up confidently. I'm the director of marketing. I've introduced bold strategies that repositioned our brand. Mary nodded slowly. Go on, dear. Kate smiled proudly and began describing disaster as innovation. After 10 minutes of Kate's creative storytelling, Mary finally asked, And what would you say has been your biggest challenge? Kate paused. Honestly, the old management didn't understand modern marketing, she said. I've been educating the team. Mary smiled politely. Wonderful. And do you track performance metrics? That question made Kate hesitate. Well, marketing success is complex. It's not always about sales. Mary leaned back. Of course. But I will need all performance reports by this afternoon. Kate forced a smile, but a shadow crossed her eyes. When the meeting ended, Mary asked softly, Kate dear, could you stay? The room emptied quickly. Kate sat with stiff posture, still unaware of the storm coming. Mary folded her notebook. Before we continue, I want you to answer something honestly. Do you know who I am? Kate blinked, confused. You're the new owner, Ms. Parker. Mary nodded. Yes. But my full name is Mary Parker. Recognition slowly flashed across Kate's face. Her smile disappeared. Mary whispered, Hello, Kate. How are those investment jokes working out for you now? Kate stammered, I didn't mean anything by those comments. Mary raised a hand. We'll discuss that later. Right now, we must talk about performance. She placed several documents on the table. Your campaigns have cost the company hundreds of thousands in losses. Client complaints, missed deadlines, wasted resources. These are not opinions, dear. These are numbers. Kate's face strained. Please, Mary. I can fix this. But Mary shook her head gently. No, Kate. You've had 6 months to fix it. The words hung in the air like a final bell. By Monday morning at 10 a.m., the termination meeting was prepared with legal documentation. Mary sat behind her desk when Kate walked in carrying a thick folder. Good morning, Kate whispered shakily. Mary gestured to the chair. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Kate placed her folder down. I have reports, new ideas, strategies for next quarter, Mary cut in gently. Kate, we won't be needing those today. Kate froze. Mary slid a document toward her. This meeting is to inform you that your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Kate stared at the paper. No, you can't fire me. My parents, my husband, everyone will ask what happened. Mary folded her hands calmly. You were terminated for performance reasons. Not personal reasons. not revenge. Performance. Kate shook her head violently. This is about Thanksgiving. You're doing this because of that night. Mary leaned forward. Kate, listen carefully. You mocked me publicly, yes, but that is not why you're losing your job. You're losing it because you are not good at it. And this company cannot survive your decisions. Security escorted Kate out of the building. Later that afternoon, Mary received a text from Evan. Mom, we need to talk. Kate is hysterical. Mary replied, come over tonight. That evening, Evan sat at her kitchen table, shoulders tense. Mom, did you buy that company because of what Kate said? Mary smiled softly. I bought it because it was a good investment. Evan shook his head. She thinks you ruined her life. Mary looked at him gently. Sweetheart, people ruin their own lives when they refuse to grow. Evan sighed heavily. Kate's parents are furious. They think you embarrassed their family name. Mary raised a brow. Did they mention Kate's job performance? Evan nodded. They said that doesn't matter. They said you targeted her. Mary leaned back. Well, that's interesting, because I targeted an opportunity. I targeted a company with strong potential. And sadly, Kate happened to be the weakest part of it. Evan rubbed his forehead. Mom, Kate wants to meet with you. She says she wants to apologize. Mary whispered, we'll see. 2 days later, Mary met Kate at a quiet cafe downtown. Kate arrived dressed perfectly, but her eyes carried fear. Mary, please, she began, I want to talk about my job. Maybe we can come to an agreement. Mary folded her hands slowly. Kate, dear, let's not pretend this is a negotiation. Kate swallowed. I need that job. My parents will cut me off. Evan will lose respect for me. I'll have nothing. Mary looked at her steadily. Then perhaps losing everything is the lesson life is giving you right now. Kate leaned in, lowering her voice as if secrets might save her. Mary, I know we've had misunderstandings. I know I said things I shouldn't have. But please, we're family now. Mary shook her head gently. Family does not mock one another's dreams, dear. Kate blinked rapidly. I can change. I'll work harder. I'll listen. Mary sighed. Kate, your problem isn't effort. It's entitlement. You believe success belongs to you simply because you want it. Kate whispered, so you won't help me? Mary replied softly, not this time. 3 days later, Evan returned to Mary's apartment, visibly stressed. Mom, something worse happened, he said, dropping onto the couch. Mary sat beside him calmly. Tell me. Evan's hands shook. Kate's parents hired a lawyer. They're accusing you of wrongful termination, personal revenge, even financial fraud. Mary raised her eyebrows with mild surprise. Fraud? That's creative. Evan leaned forward. They think you got the money illegally. They think you targeted Kate. Mary touched his arm gently. Sweetheart, people accuse others when they're afraid of their own truth. Mary called her lawyer, Sarah Pierce, that same evening. We have a situation, Mary said calmly. Sarah replied, send me every document. We'll prepare. Evan paced behind them nervously. Mom, are you sure you want to fight this? Richard has money. He has connections. Mary smiled softly. Evan, connections fall apart when truth pushes hard enough. Sarah asked, do you have documentation on the acquisition? Mary opened her laptop. Every detail. And some information about Richard's financial behavior he won't want exposed. Sarah paused. This will end quickly. On Monday morning, Mary stepped into the Grand Law office where Richard, Linda, Kate, and their expensive attorney waited. Richard crossed his arms. Let's handle this quietly, he said. Reinstate Kate, pay $2 million in damages, and we'll drop the accusations. Mary blinked once. $2 million? For firing someone who failed at her job. Kate whispered, Dad, but he ignored her. Richard leaned forward. You can't fight this. We'll bury you in court. Mary folded her hands. Richard, dear, when you threaten someone, be sure your own house is clean. Mary's lawyer slid a thick folder across the table. This contains evidence from the financial regulators, Sarah said calmly. Richard stiffened. Evidence of what? Sarah replied, evidence of false reporting, suspicious transfers, and client manipulation inside your firm. Richard's lawyer snapped, this is nonsense. But Mary leaned back. It's not nonsense. It's an 18-month investigation you forgot to mention. Kate turned to her father, pale. Dad, what is she talking about? Richard said nothing. His silence said everything. Linda covered her mouth in horror. Richard's lawyer flipped through the pages faster and faster, his face draining of color. Richard, he whispered urgently, why wasn't I informed about this? Richard barked, those documents are confidential. Sarah replied calmly, not when the regulators share them as part of an active inquiry. Kate stared at her father, trembling. Dad, please tell me this isn't real. Richard slammed his fist on the table. We're not discussing this here. Mary rose to her feet slowly. Then we have nothing else to discuss. Withdraw your claims, or face the investigation openly. Linda reached for Mary's arm, her voice shaking. Please, Mary. Don't ruin us. We can find another way. Mary turned gently toward her. Linda, your husband ruined himself. He chose shortcuts. He chose lies. I will not pay for his decisions. Richard's lawyer exhaled deeply. We need time to reconsider our position. Mary nodded. Take all the time you need, but understand something clearly. I will not be intimidated. And I will not protect corruption. Kate whispered, so everything I said about you was wrong. Mary replied softly, yes, dear. That night, Evan returned to Mary's apartment again. Mom. Richard told Kate everything. She's devastated. Mary poured him tea. How are you feeling about all this? Evan sighed. I don't know. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I married someone who thinks she's above everyone else. Mary touched his hand. Evan, you married someone who hasn't learned yet. Some people grow under pressure. Some collapse. This is her moment to choose who she will become. Evan whispered, and if she doesn't change? Mary answered, then you must decide what peace looks like for you. The next morning, Mary received a formal notice. All accusations withdrawn. No settlement requested. No apology offered. Just silence from the Hartford family. Sarah cold. It's over, she said. Mary replied, no dear. This chapter is over. But consequences have their own timing. Meanwhile, Brightpoint Systems flourished under its new leadership. The new marketing director delivered impressive results. Employees began stopping Mary in the halls to say, thank you for giving this company a future. Mary smiled each time. Not out of pride, but out of deep, earned peace. Evan visited again that Friday evening, looking both nervous and determined. Mom, he began gently. Kate moved back with her parents. She said she needs time alone. Mary nodded softly. That might be the best thing for her. Evan continued, she told me she doesn't know who she is without the privilege she grew up with. And she finally understands how wrong she was about you. Mary sighed. Growth is painful, Evan. But necessary. Evan whispered, I think our marriage might end. Mary touched his shoulder. Then let it end with honesty, not anger. Days passed quietly until Evan called again and asked, Mom, can we talk somewhere private? They met at a small park, the evening air cool against their skin. Evan sat on a bench with his hands clasped tightly. Kate wants a separation, he said softly. She says she doesn't know how to face everything that happened. Mary listened without interrupting. Evan continued, she said she needs to figure out who she is without money, without her parents, without control. Mary nodded gently. Sometimes losing everything is how people finally see themselves. Back at Brightpoint, progress came quickly. The new marketing director increased sales, expanded partnerships, and rebuilt client trust. One afternoon, a young employee approached Mary shyly and said, Ma'am, thank you. We finally feel like this company has direction again. Mary smiled. You all had the strength. I just cleared the path. As she walked through the bright office halls, she felt something new, a sense of belonging in a world she once thought was too big for her. She whispered to herself, 60 isn't old. It's powerful. Meanwhile, Richard's legal troubles deepened. News stations reported financial misconduct, client losses, and pending charges. Linda filed for divorce quietly, trying to protect what little she had left. Kate, without her father's shelter, moved into a small apartment funded by temporary savings. Evan told Mary, she finally understands what struggle feels like. Mary answered softly, struggle teaches us to grow. Privilege teaches us to hide. Evan sighed. She says she wants to apologize to you properly, not for your job decision, but for how she treated you as a human being. Kate requested one final meeting. Mary agreed and met her in a quiet cafe, the same one where Kate had tried to negotiate before. This time, Kate arrived with no expensive clothes, no practiced smile, no false confidence. She sat down slowly and whispered, Mary, I'm sorry. Truly. Mary looked at her calmly. What are you sorry for, dear? Kate swallowed hard. For mocking you. For assuming you were less. For thinking money made me better. For hurting Evan. And for not realizing you were stronger than all of us. Mary listened carefully, her expression soft. Mary finally spoke. Kate, apology accepted. Growth matters more than mistakes. Kate's eyes filled with tears. I don't know who I am anymore. Mary reached across the table gently. Then start over. Learn. Work. Build something real. You are young. You can change your life. Kate whispered, do you think Evan will ever forgive me? Mary replied, forgiveness is possible. But reconciliation is a choice for both of you. Give him time. Kate nodded slowly. For the first time, she looked like a young woman facing her world honestly, not hiding behind it. Later that night, Evan sat at Mary's kitchen table once again. I met with Kate, he said quietly. She apologized. She's really broken, Mom. Mary poured tea and replied softly, pain can either destroy us or rebuild us. Evan stared at his hands. I loved her, Mom. But we're not right together anymore. Mary touched his arm. Love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes love means letting go with peace. Evan took a long breath. I want a life built on honesty and respect. Not fear and pride. Mary whispered, then choose that life. Weeks passed, and Brightpoint Systems continued to grow under Mary's leadership. Reporters began asking for interviews, fascinated by the woman who built wealth at 60 and bought a company after years of working 3 jobs. One reporter asked, Ms. Parker, what made you believe you could enter the investment world so late in life? Mary smiled and said, late is only a feeling. Knowledge has no age limit. Courage doesn't retire. Her story inspired thousands of women who wrote messages saying, you showed me it's not too late. One quiet evening, Evan came to celebrate his new engineering job offer. Mary cooked his favorite dinner, and they laughed like the old days. Mom, Evan said, thank you for everything. You taught me resilience. You taught me strength. And you showed me that people can rise above anything. Mary smiled warmly. I didn't rise alone, sweetheart. You grew beside me. Evan hugged her tightly. I want to build a future that makes you proud. Mary whispered, you already have. The room felt full of hope instead of pain. As Mary later sat by her apartment window, she reflected on the whirlwind of the past year. The struggles, the insults, the victories, the quiet joys, they all shaped her into someone she never expected to become. She whispered, not bad for a woman people underestimated. Outside, the city lights glowed like small promises. She felt no anger toward Kate, no bitterness toward Richard, just clarity. Life had unfolded exactly as it needed to, and every setback had prepared her for her rise. On the morning Brightpoint's new headquarters plaque was unveiled, Mary stood proudly as employees clapped around her. Evan stood beside her, smiling with pride. The plaque read, built on strength, led with integrity. Mary ran her fingers over the words and breathed deeply. This, she whispered, is what perseverance becomes. She looked at her son and said, we made it, Evan. He nodded, eyes warm. Yes, Mom. You showed the world who you really are. And as the sunlight hit the plaque, Mary knew her story had truly begun.